Marjane Satrapi was born in Rasht, Iran in 1969. She is an Iranian artist and writer whose graphic novels explore the gaps and the junctures between East and West. Marjane is married to Matthias Ripa, a Swedish national. They are actually living in Paris. Apart from her native language Persian, she speaks German, Italian, French, English, and Swedish. Both her parents were politically active and supported Marxist causes against the last Shah, but because of the fundamentalists, they were intimidated. She has written different graphic novels. For example, Persepolis Part 1 and Part 2. They were originally published in French. They both describe her childhood in Iran and her adolescence in Europe. She also wrote embroideries, Chicken with Plums, Monsters Are Afraid of the Moon, and The Sigh. She has also made some films, like Persepolis, Chicken with Plums, Gang of the Jodas, The Voices, and Radioactive, where she plays different kind of roles: director, co-director, co-written assistant, co-director, um, and so on. Uh, a, a short summary of Persepolis is that it describes Marjane's childhood in Iran, where she was exposed to innumerable atrocities due to different regimes in which she lived. During her youth, many of her family, friends, and members were persecuted, arrested, and even murdered by the Shah and then by the fundamentalists. For example, her uncle Anush, her uncle and his uncle Ferdinand, her parents' friends, and some others. During the war, there were lots of forbidden things, such as no drinking, no shaving, no partying, no playing, and so on. And if you broke those rules, there were consequences. For example, you were more likely to be sued by your neighbors and then arrested and punished by the policeman. Iran was a democracy after the Second World War. Mossadegh was a prime minister, a popular one, who was revered by his people for his secular credentials and his reforms to combat poverty. So it all started because the British government and the CIA orchestrated the overthrow of Iran's democratically elected government. Iranian democracy was deposed, and the US and the UK reinstated monarchy in Iran because they wanted Iran's oil reserves. But the prime minister didn't want to sell it to them. So what the British government and the CIA did was to put a new ruler in Iran, and it was Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. He was backed, as I was saying, by the West and initiated a period of industrialization, military expansion, and economic reforms. So basically, he maintained his power all that long because of his secret police, the Savak, the most hated and feared institution in the country. It conducted arbitrary arrests and different kind of tortures because they wanted obedience. So this is the story of how Iran became the religious fundamentalist state it is today. Because it begins as many geopolitical tragedies do, with a young democracy and a lot of oil reserves. The thing with the Iranian Revolution was that nobody was expecting it. So in 1979, this revolution was one of the most important events of modern world history because it altered the dynamics of the Middle East and set the stage for decades-long animosity between the Muslim world and the West. It also was an epic alliance of men and women, of liberals and conservatives, of communists and fundamentalists, and the young and the old. They were all involved in trying to get a new a new different type of government for their country. So demonstrations and manifestations were fueled by by economic problems and the opposition to the Shah's policies. So the autocratic theocracy, um, they say that before the dust had settled, an oppressive monarchy obsessed with modernization had been replaced with an even more oppressive theocracy obsessed with Islamization. So Khomeini was a radical Muslim cleric. He was seen as spiritual leader of many Iranian revolutionaries, meaning the Orthodox Islamist ones. And, and he was perceived as a figurehead. But the only problem he had was that he wasn't a liberal. But they wanted him because he was the leader. So on March the 30th, 2 months after Khomeini returned to Iran because he was exiled, a referendum to replace the monarchy with an Islamic republic passed with 98% voting in favor of the reform. With the question, should the monarchy be abolished in favor of an Islamic government? Now these are the main characters of the story: Marjane, her father and her mother, her grandmother, Marjane's friends, and Mary, her maid, her uncle Anush and her uncle Tahir, the Shah and Khomeini, who were the centers of the problems. Personally, I believe the major theme of the story is absolutely the internal problems that happened during those years with the Shah, the Islamic Revolution, which led to the Islamic Republic, and the absurd Islamization. And then, of course, the seizure of power by the Muslim fundamentalists, and the war between Iraq and Iran, with everything that it brought: bombs, lack of food, lack of gasoline, death all over the country. And I believe it affected her deeply, and her family. Um, for example, the closed boundaries and the new prohibitions they were not accustomed to. Additionally, I think it was an important part of the story how Marjane, despite all the bad things that were happening, and with the regime becoming more repressive or oppressive every day, she always knew what she wanted for her family, and for her country. So she wasn't gonna give up so easily. And so, and as she grew up, she decided to rebel against her mom and the system by skipping class, smoking, wearing jeans, being improperly veiled, listening to band music and stuff. And it led to getting into trouble. In consequence of acting out,